Start with OTBsports.com. They are winners. Kevin Moran on the brilliance of Matt Busby, Fergie and Kevin Heffernan. That is the lead story on the homepage on on OTBsports.com, I should say, at the moment. Brilliant piece, and that piece is going to be streamed live tonight on our social channels. Kevin Moran in conversation with Off the Ball. Always very, very interesting character. Brilliant in the comparisons between Heffernan and Fergie, and as you see in the headline there, winning is the thing that binds them all. Also very interesting on the presence of Matt Busby at Manchester United during his early stages at Manchester United. You've got more racing news there from OTBsports.com from Leopardstown. Former Ireland international lands managerial post in India, that's Curtis Fleming, and Liverpool legend appeals to supporters to celebrate at home. That is OTBsports.com this morning.
All right, let's look at the newspapers. The back of the Irish Independent, Gareth Bale, a masked Gareth Bale on the back of the Irish Independent. A couple of interesting stories as well. Tensions rise as players set for IRFU talks over pay cuts. So this story covered in a lot of the newspapers. Tensions mounting ahead of talks between the IRFU and Rugby Players Ireland after the players' representatives hit out at reports of a proposed 20% pay cut. They issued a statement early yesterday morning saying they were very disappointed that the IRFU had jumped the gun. There were reports on Friday about this 20% pay cut, and also that off-field staff going down to a 4-day week within the IRFU. Obviously, Irish Rugby going to take a massive, massive hit with the lack of attendances at games, possibly even between now and the end of the year. It seems that Rugby Players Ireland are accepting that cuts will need to happen, but the public nature of how it was put out there seems to have really frustrated them. So that'll be worth watching over the next few days, particularly because I think Rugby Players Ireland have, in general, had a very good relationship with the IRFU in comparison to, say, what happens in England and in France. And the other story that we'll definitely be tracking later today and over the next few days, FAI back to the drawing board after Euro clubs reject cash plans. So this story emerged on Thursday that one of the ways that they may try and get the league back up and running and find the money to get the league back up and running is asking the 4 clubs who qualified for Europe to share some of those funds with the rest of the teams, up on €160,000. But those 4 clubs had a conference call yesterday and decided that it wasn't for them. Dundalk chairman Bill Heiser wrote to officials from other league clubs saying they've been let down by the FAI over a number of issues, including the failure to set a date for the resumption of the League of Ireland, the only summer league in Europe, bar Moldova, which is yet to establish a date. They said there was no business logic to what the FAI were proposing. So another hammer blow. There's some big meetings going to take place on that today.
We'll come back to that very shortly indeed. The Irish Examiner leads with a piece with Graham Souness. He's toasting the Reds heroes who have grown into men. That is the thrust of the piece. There is some great stuff on John Giles as well, which we'll come back to in a sec. Conor Murray says, shutdown could add 2 years to my career. This is the possible benefit of what's happened over the last couple of months. People who've been on the road for quite some time have had a bit of a sabbatical and time to recharge the batteries. Jason Sherlock, make anti-racism part of GEA coaching. And then the other story here on the front page of the Irish Examiner sports section is from Troy Deeney. Probably one gay or bi person in every football team. He's on Louis Theroux's podcast and saying there's at least one gay or bi person in every Premier League team. That's his hunch. I think people that are gay or from that community definitely are very worried about having to shoulder the responsibility or being the first. I think once the first comes out, there will be loads. So that is Troy Deeney, and that is the Irish Examiner.
On the back of the Times, this is the Times, the English edition. Rashford, we need to help kids like me. Again, covered in a lot of the British newspapers. Marcus Rashford wrote an open letter to MPs. He's raised a huge amount of money, millions over the last couple of months, basically providing food vouchers to young children in need, and he's written a passionate letter describing his situation as a youngster growing up who needed a similar sort of help, and look how far he has come and look at all he's achieved, and trying to get MPs on board on that. So a lot of people rightly commending. And over on the right hand side, crime boss of boxing gets stars backing. Some of boxing's biggest power brokers have offered support for a global summit for the sport in Bahrain, despite the event being organised by Daniel Kinahan. This again follows the Irish government writing to both Sky and to BT over the last couple of days. But there has been little or no reaction from within boxing to all of this. So it will be fascinating to watch over the coming days as to whether Sky and BT do respond to what the government have been asking of them.
The Irish Times this morning leads with an interview with Cesc Fabregas from The Guardian. Racism, homophobia, the French disconnect. Vaishali Bardaj has done a piece with him. It's time to speak up. If you have to close the stadiums and hand out bans, we should. You've got a full stadium there of 42,000 people at Eden Park for a Super Rugby game over the course of the weekend. Things very much back to normal in New Zealand. Brian O'Connor writing this morning about McIlroy versus McGinley. The days of shut up and dribble are gone, touching on Rory McIlroy and the way he's waded into a political discussion on a fairly mild level. But he says for many, McIlroy having a pop at the Chancellor in the White House underlines the player's capacity to utter a lot of good sense. And Ian O'Riordan is doing a Jason Sherlock story here. GEA must play its part in tackling racism. All-Ireland winner calls on GEA to explore new ways to make clubs more inclusive.
The back of the Mirror, Oba and out. Striker hints at exit plan, telling club, I'm at a crossroads and face a very difficult decision. This Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who has just over a year left on his contract, and it seems as though, well, if he's at a crossroads, he ain't committing to Arsenal. It'd be a huge blow for Arsenal. He is their one world-class player right now, so he may well be gone over the course of the summer. Lots of football stories on the back of the Mirror, including United Sancho delay. Now is for Griel that they're going to change their attention to Jack Grealish if they can't get Jadon Sancho. And one title is never enough. I've seen this covered quite a bit over the last 24 hours. Basically, Gary Neville telling Liverpool that you're not a great team with one title. You need to go and back it up.
The Irish Daily Star this morning goes with cop speed. Hendo wants Liverpool at full pelt from the restart as Prem title lies in wait. Alba concern for Gunners, Rory hopes melt in Texas, and United's €84 million bid for Jack. As you've mentioned, Jack Grealish is now the top target for Manchester United in this summer's transfer window.
The Irish Daily Mail, doors reopen, boys in green see fans back for Euro Clash. A story there from John Fallon that there could be 18,000 supporters for Stephen Kenny's first home game in charge in the autumn. It says just. I think at this stage the FAI would probably take 18,000 supporters being allowed in, considering we're probably expecting behind closed doors for the remainder of the year. Again, they cover as well the row brewing over pay cuts for rugby pros, and also on the right-hand side, Eoin call to banish racism. This following on from Jason Sherlock's appearance on the Sunday game last night, where he talked about the racism that he's faced down through the years. Among his proposals, the part of coaching the coaches in the GEA is that they would be coached on how to tackle racism within their clubs.
The Irish Sun this morning, the headline is Premier League, we're cabbing a laugh. Cop could celebrate in car park. So this is going to be a makeshift building that is erected at Goodison Park to ensure that social distancing can be maintained, because Everton are going to need both dressing rooms for staff and players for them to keep their 2 metres apart. So Liverpool's final game before they confirm themselves as Premier League champions could basically be in a makeshift scenario at the back of Goodison. And Rash MP's letter, as you mentioned, Marcus Rashford has demanded British MPs stamp out the UK's shameful child poverty record in a heartbreaking letter to Westminster.
That letter is also covered on the back of The Guardian. I encourage you to hear their pleas and find your humanity. Rashford tells MPs to help vulnerable children. What does it come to that Marcus Rashford is the one who's having to tell MPs this? And also, fears grow over frenzy of online gambling when football restarts. Welfare campaigners sound alarm over deluge of TV games during lockdown.
The Daily Telegraph then leads with Marcus Rashford. His plea to MPs, stop child hunger or alienate a generation. England striker calls for a U-turn on scrapping free meals. Open letter encourages ministers to show humanity.
The Herald again covers Jason Sherlock on the Sunday game. Sherlock an anti-racism plea to GAA. They also have that picture of Marcelo taking the knee during Real Madrid's victory against Eibar yesterday. And clubs say no to FAI's plea. Blow for League of Ireland relaunch plan as Dundalk feel let down is the latest on that.
The Irish News this morning leads with Jamar Hall. Cutting the league would set Armagh back. Obviously on course to get promoted, and not finishing off the National Football League would set them back in their quest to dine at the top table. And a photo there of Rory McIlroy in Fort Worth, Texas. A poor day for him yesterday.
The Racing Post listed double seals a wonder weekend for Lyons. This is a big race double for trainer Ger Lyons over the weekend. And on the back of the Racing Post, Betis eyeing up a rapid response. Of course, La Liga returning over the weekend.
Let's have another look at what's on the OTB Sports app this morning. Available now on the App Store and Google Play Store, of course. This is the feed, which is your personalised homepage. It's got all the latest news, our features and much more as well. You can click on the radio tab then, and you can listen to OTB AM live every morning. And there's also the schedule for OTB Sports Radio, our 24/7 sports radio station, and you can see everything that's coming up across the week. You can go to the video section there as well to see our latest videos. And on podcasts, you will get everything from the OTB Podcast Network. Over 40 podcasts per week up there. So, Nathan, we're going to turn our attention to 3 stories before we get to Tommy Welsh. Just to go back to the FAI story, first of all, you've kind of summed it up pretty well there. What's your take on all of this? First off, the fact that FAI, or League of Ireland clubs, I should say, 4 of them were asked to actually stump up the cash. The array of revenue options for the FAI at this point was so limited that they essentially had to go cap in hand to a couple of the clubs last night. That was unsurprisingly rejected. Like, you can't really blame the current administration for being in this position, given how poorly the League of Ireland was looked after in previous years, and this is the situation that they found themselves in, that once you turned off the tap of people coming into the stadium, the league all of a sudden looks in serious jeopardy.
Yeah, it always seemed unlikely that the 4 European clubs were going to give up that money. About a month ago, we had Vinnie Perth, the Dundalk manager, on the show, and I put this possible scenario to him almost in a joking way, and he gave a list of reasons as to why he didn't think it would be possible, including how clubs have been run over the last few years and how different clubs have different ownership structures, different clubs have different stadium structures. Some clubs have obviously community support for their stadiums, others don't, and that down through the years there hasn't really been a lot of equity in how equality and how League of Ireland clubs have been run. So to turn around now and ask the successful clubs to hand over a quantity of cash didn't seem right. There was any amount of complications then, I would imagine, as to how you would split that money between the clubs. Some clubs have furloughed players in recent months. Some have managed to keep playing all their players. So they're obviously trying to exhaust absolutely every avenue. But it again just points to, for all the various ideas that have been thrown out there by the new FAI, none of them have come up with a fail-safe proof to bring through enough money to see the league through until the end of the season. Where do they go from here? There's a lot of talk of that there is going to be some potential government funding, that some money may come now, some of it may be pushed back until later in the year, but there might be enough to get them back up and running again. They need to find something, because if they don't find something soon, players simply are going to be unemployed. They're going to end up on the dole. There's no major rush in one sense, in that they know who the European clubs are for next season because of the way the League of Ireland season runs. And maybe in one way they can push back and go back to winter football and start a season in October, November, when crowds potentially are allowed back into the stadiums. But like, the vast majority of clubs, if not all the clubs, simply can't afford to keep playing players for another 3-4 months with nothing coming in.
The FAI officials are due to meet the PFAI at 1 p.m. today, ahead of a 4 o'clock meeting with club representatives. So we'll probably have more detail on this situation a little bit later on today. We just want to touch on the Irish Examiner again. Souness toast Reds heroes who have grown into men. Great piece with Larry Ryan here and Graham Souness. It's a little bit beyond Liverpool, though, that we want to touch on, Nathan, as the Thursday night host of Off the Ball. This will be of particular interest to you. I'm not sure whose idea this was. I'm sure it was your own idea to get John Giles to go through his best 11s of various different clubs and countries over the last couple of weeks.
I'd love to take credit. It was actually John's own idea.
Oh, right, okay. Well, fair play.
He'd obviously been storing this up, waiting for the right moment.
Well, it's been a raging success, and naturally, once he moved on to Scotland, Graham Souness appeared, and Larry Ryan put that to Graham Souness, the fact that he would have come up against John Giles at the start of his career. And I might actually just read out the quotes here, because they're excellent. I can remember it vividly. This is a couple of fierce battles with Giles. He was an absolute rascal. It's no longer there, but I could take you onto Ayrton Park by the corner flag. Someone's played a short corner to me, and as I've played it first time, I didn't know he was on my shoulder, and he's just gone, have some of that. His 6 studs, a real stinger. Apart from being someone who could very much look after himself, he was a top performer, a master craftsman, proper player, but a nasty little bastard. It is said with affection and a smile, of course. I say to people, there's 3 players I never laid a finger on in my career. In those days, it was part of my job, because I was big for a midfield player. One was Zico, too cute, had a radar. Another one was Alan Ball, and I've got to throw Johnny Giles into that as well. I caught Billy Bremner a few times, but could never lay a finger on Johnny, and he reminds me. An absolute rascal, Nathan.
Well, you got to think of the context as well. At this stage of his career, Giles is well into his 30s, hardened pro, and sees this young, possibly, if not teenage, very early 20s, Graham Souness, and the opportunity just presented itself. It's come up on 4 or 5 occasions over the last few months that sometimes during John's career, opportunities just presented themselves. And when an opportunity presents itself, you don't turn it down. There was many cases of revenge dished out when an opportunity presented itself, sometimes 7-8 years after an initial tackle had been made. Even going back to last Thursday night, we selected Everton's all-time 11, which is well worth a listen. He told a story about Sandy Brown, former Scottish defender, a right back, who didn't make his team, but was part of a match that went down in infamy. I think it was 1963-64, Leeds against Everton. Everton were the reigning league champions, and Leeds went up there, and the first 5 minutes, by all accounts, reading about it over the weekend, was just carnage. And the story goes that John tackles Sandy Brown, goes in, an opportunity presented itself. The two players are on the ground, and as they're getting up, Sandy Brown decks him, just punches him straight in the face, and Sandy Brown is sent off. All hell breaks loose, and the referee, 5-6 minutes into the game, has to bring both sets of players off the pitch, back into the dressing room. It's like the whole thing is just boiled over to that extent. Now, I've read 3 different reports, and all of them suggest that John tackled Sandy Brown. John, recollection is different. He is fairly sure that Sandy Brown tackled him and just could not understand as to why he had reacted in this way. And that game is the one that really started Leeds and the dirty Leeds tag, and that this was a team not to be messed with. But there's many great stories of it was a different era. I even think back to Keegan in the Charity Shield, and that scrap. Like, imagine if that happened today. The 2 lads would be going to jail.
Yeah. They really would. It is a different time. It's been a great list, I must say, the 11s over the past few weeks with John Giles, and that piece with Graham Souness in the Irish Examiner today, worth looking at as well.